One simple move after meals drops blood sugar by 52%. Doctor shows how deep within the intricate architecture of your lower leg, an unsung hero of your metabolism lies subtly concealed. It is a muscle that, for most individuals, remains an anonymous component of their anatomy, its very existence unknown. Nestled profoundly behind the robust shin bone, it is securely tucked away beneath the more prominent and visible gastrocnemius, the muscle responsible for the noticeable bulge in your calf. This hidden muscle eludes visual detection in any mirror, and its presence is rarely felt during the ordinary rhythms of daily life. Yet, despite its discreet nature, this small, unassuming muscle possesses an extraordinary and profoundly impactful ability, a unique superpower in the realm of human physiology. When activated, even through the simplest of movements, it possesses the remarkable capacity to actively extract glucose, or sugar, directly from your bloodstream without requiring the intervention or even the slightest exertion from your pancreas. This groundbreaking understanding is not mere speculation, but is firmly rooted in rigorous scientific investigation. A seminal peer-reviewed study conducted by researchers at the esteemed University of Houston provided compelling empirical evidence, quantifying the immense power of this overlooked muscle. The findings were nothing short of astonishing. Participants in the study who intentionally engaged this specific muscle while remaining seated, yes, while simply sitting down, observed a dramatic reduction in their after-meal blood sugar spike, a staggering decrease of approximately half. Consider the implications of this discovery, a significant metabolic benefit achieved without the arduous demands of a gym workout, the restrictive nature of a complex diet, or the reliance on pharmaceutical interventions. It required nothing more than a single subtle movement performed at a desk. Once the underlying mechanisms of this physiological marvel are grasped, the common experience of the post-lunch energy slump, often erroneously attributed to the inevitable march of age or the perceived heaviness of a recent meal, can be properly understood and, crucially, addressed. The lethargy, the mental fog, the insistent cravings that many perceive as a failing of willpower or an unavoidable consequence of aging are, in fact, a predictable biochemical response, one that can be profoundly influenced by this simple yet powerful action. To truly comprehend the genesis of the ubiquitous after-meal energy crash, it is essential to first establish a foundational understanding of glucose itself. Glucose, in its most fundamental molecular configuration, is pure sugar, and critically, it serves as the primary fuel source for nearly every cell within your remarkable body. This designation as fuel is not merely semantic, it underscores glucose's vital role. Your muscles tirelessly consume it for movement, your liver meticulously stores it as an energy reserve, and your brain, the command center of your entire being, is almost entirely reliant on its constant supply. Disrupt the flow of glucose to your brain for more than a mere handful of minutes, and the intricate machinery of clear thought and cognitive function begins to falter precipitously. Therefore, glucose is unequivocally not an adversary. It is an indispensable, non-negotiable prerequisite for the continuation of life itself. The core of the metabolic challenge never lies with glucose in isolation. Instead, the fundamental problem arises when an excessive quantity of this vital fuel surges into your bloodstream with alarming rapidity, leaving your body with no immediate, productive avenue for its utilization. When you consume carbohydrates found in a wide array of foods such as breads, rice, pasta, potatoes, virtually anything sweet, and even certain fruits, your digestive system meticulously deconstructs these complex molecules, breaking them down into their simplest form, glucose. This newly liberated glucose then permeates the walls of your intestines and makes its way into your bloodstream. This initial process is entirely natural and indeed wholly necessary. The metabolic distress truly commences, however, when a substantial volume of glucose inundates the circulatory system all at once, creating a sudden and overwhelming influx. To vividly illustrate this phenomenon, envision a garden hose connected to a faucet that is opened gently, allowing a steady, manageable flow of water. The hose maintains its integrity, its shape remains consistent, and everything functions smoothly. Now, dramatically shift this mental image. Picture someone abruptly cranking that faucet wide open. The sudden, immense pressure causes the hose to visibly bulge and its walls to strain under the sudden load. This analogy closely mirrors the physiological stress experienced by your delicate blood vessels during a sharp and pronounced sugar spike. Your body, an exquisitely tuned biological system, instantly detects this sudden surge in blood glucose and promptly dispatches an urgent biochemical signal to your pancreas, a vital glandular organ ingeniously positioned behind your stomach. The message conveyed is clear, precise, and demanding. Release insulin, and do so with immediate effect and considerable speed. Insulin, a crucial hormone, can be conceptualized as a dedicated delivery worker within your circulatory system. Its primary mission is to meticulously gather glucose molecules from the blood and efficiently shuttle them into various cells throughout the body, where they can either be directly utilized for energy or prudently stored for future needs. A portion of this glucose is directed to your active muscle cells, ready to be converted into mechanical energy. A significant quantity, however, is transported to your liver, where it undergoes a transformation and is meticulously packed away in a more complex form known as glycogen. Glycogen essentially functions as your body's sophisticated emergency fuel reserve, strategically held in readiness for periods of sustained activity or caloric deprivation. Yet, here is where the narrative takes an intriguing and pivotal turn. If your muscle cells are already saturated with their energy stores and your liver's glycogen reserves are at their maximum capacity, and you find yourself in a state of sedentary repose, perhaps sitting idly on the couch after a substantial dinner, your body is still confronted with the imperative to manage the substantial leftover glucose circulating in your blood. It does not simply discard this excess energy. Instead, it employs a less desirable but necessary storage mechanism. It diligently tucks this surplus glucose into your fat cells. And once glucose is converted and deposited within these adipose tissues, it becomes notoriously recalcitrant, proving exceptionally challenging to retrieve and mobilize for energy at a later time. Concurrently, your diligently working insulin, having been released in abundance, often performs its arduous task with almost excessive efficiency. It has vigorously propelled such a significant quantity of glucose out of your bloodstream that your sugar levels can, at times, plummet to concentrations even lower than their starting point before you consumed your meal. This precipitous drop is the very essence of the crash, and it is the direct physiological antecedent to the constellation of symptoms that millions of individuals experience and describe on a daily basis. As your blood sugar rapidly declines, your brain, which relies almost exclusively on glucose for its continuous operation, enters a state of profound alarm. It broadcasts an urgent distress signal. Energy reserves are critically low. Address this deficit immediately. A palpable wave of pervasive tiredness washes over you, heavy and insistent. Your mind begins to feel clouded and indistinct. A frustrating mental fog descends, rendering clear thought an elusive pursuit. Your cognitive processes slow down, becoming sluggish and sticky, making concentration difficult. Your eyelids grow heavy, an almost irresistible urge to close them takes hold. And then, with an almost primal urgency, arrives that distinct, almost desperate craving for something sweet, something that promises an immediate sugar fix. A comforting cookie, a convenient candy bar, or a handful of chocolate pilfered from the office kitchen. It is crucial to understand that this experience is not a testament to personal weakness, nor is it indicative of a deficit in willpower. It bears no relation to your inherent character. This is pure, unadulterated biochemistry at play. Your brain is merely executing the precise evolutionary directive it developed over millennia to safeguard itself against fuel deprivation by compelling you to seek out and consume more energy. The rapid ascent of sugar was followed by an equally rapid descent, and now your brain, sensing an energy crisis, defaults to an energy conservation mode. It systematically decelerates all non-urgent physiological and cognitive functions, prioritizing the sustained operation of essential life-sustaining processes. This intricate biochemical cascade is the precise reality underlying that pervasive feeling of hitting a wall that so many encounter around 3 in the afternoon. Consider a compelling illustration derived directly from clinical practice that perfectly encapsulates this metabolic conundrum. There was a woman named Linda, approximately 44 years of age, who diligently pursued a career as an accountant. In the mornings, she was consistently sharp, capable, and intellectually astute. However, without fail, every afternoon following her lunch, she would invariably hit a wall. A dense mental fog would descend, rendering her unable to concentrate on the complex numerical data displayed before her, and, with the predictable regularity of a clock, around 3 p.m., she would find herself walking down the office hallway, drawn inexorably toward the vending machine, where she would purchase a chocolate bar. For countless years, Linda rationalized this persistent behavior with the same internal narrative. She simply possessed an insatiable sweet tooth, or perhaps she lacked sufficient self-discipline. But as we now understand, this self-reproach was far from the truth. Her brain was merely cycling through the identical biochemical sequence every single afternoon. The temporary gratification of the chocolate would momentarily elevate her glucose levels, only for them to precipitously crash again shortly thereafter. By 6 in the evening, Linda would feel utterly depleted, completely wrung out, despite the fact that her actual workload for the day was entirely typical and presented no unusual demands. She was not suffering from exhaustion induced by her professional responsibilities. Rather, she was profoundly fatigued by an incessant blood sugar roller coaster, a turbulent metabolic ride that no one had ever adequately explained to her. And each one of these metabolic roller coasters, over time, extracts a significant physiological toll. Every single sharp spike in blood glucose compels your pancreas to initiate a heightened release of insulin. This compensatory action, repeated once, twice, then 100 times, and eventually thousands of times over the span of years, accumulates a substantial metabolic debt. Inevitably, the bill for this chronic overwork comes due. So, what are the long-term ramifications of this relentless metabolic strain? The critical physiological reality is that your pancreas is not an organ endowed with infinite capacity or an inexhaustible supply of insulin. It possesses a finite working life, and each instance of excessive insulin release subtly contributes to its gradual wear and tear. Initially, the pancreas efficiently manages to keep pace with the demands, responding with ease to glucose surges. However, over time, its responsiveness begins to diminish, a subtle slowing down. Subsequently, the cells throughout your body, perpetually bombarded by high levels of insulin, gradually begin to desensitize, progressively ignoring the crucial insulin signal. This widespread cellular indifference to insulin is a well-defined medical condition known as insulin resistance. In simpler, more accessible terms, insulin resistance signifies a state where, despite ample quantities of insulin circulating within your bloodstream, your cells have ceased to listen to its imperative biochemical message. Imagine a scenario where the correct key is present, the lock is also there, but the lock has become jammed and unresponsive. To then force glucose into the cellular interior, the pancreas is compelled to secrete even greater quantities of insulin. This compensatory cycle intensifies year after year, with the pancreas working harder and harder, yet yielding diminishing returns. The insidious nature of this process lies in its prolonged preclinical phase. For an extended period, your routine blood work may continue to appear entirely normal. There is no official diagnosis, no glaring red warning light on your medical charts. Yet, the persistent fatigue is undeniably real. A subtle yet relentless accumulation of abdominal fat begins to manifest. The intense, often uncontrollable cravings for sweet or high carbohydrate foods refuse to abate. You endure these disconcerting symptoms for years, unable to pinpoint any officially recognized ailment. It often feels prematurely alarmist to consult a medical professional because, from a clinical standpoint, nothing appears dramatically broken, but an undeniable sense of something being off persists. And with a striking irony, this precise juncture, This period, when no official pathology has yet been established, represents the most opportune and easiest moment to decisively intervene and reverse the trajectory of metabolic decline. Another recurring pattern frequently observed in primary care settings illuminates this process further. Consider Mike, a 52-year-old man who presents at his doctor's office primarily complaining of lower back pain. At first glance, this symptom appears entirely unrelated to issues of blood sugar, does it not? However, during the course of their conversation, Mike casually mentions that for the past 3 years or so, he has experienced an almost constant gnawing hunger, even immediately after consuming a full and satisfying meal. An hour later, the hunger returns with undiminished intensity. The astute doctor, recognizing these subtle yet significant metabolic cues, wisely orders a comprehensive blood panel. The results reveal his fasting glucose level to be situated at the very upper limit of the normal reference range. Clinically, this does not yet constitute a diagnosis of diabetes, nor is it even officially categorized as pre-diabetes. Yet, to a seasoned and experienced clinician, that numerical value tells a profound and cautionary tale. It signals that Mike's pancreas is operating perilously close to its maximum functional limit. Its vital metabolic reserve is shrinking. The sole reason this critical metabolic indicator had not been previously flagged was simply that, on paper, everything still appeared technically within the bounds of normalcy. If this insidious process of pancreatic strain and cellular desensitization remains uninterrupted, insulin resistance inexorably progresses, eventually transitioning into a state of pre-diabetes. Subsequently, pre-diabetes, if unaddressed, typically slides into a full-blown diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. Once an individual is contending with type 2 diabetes, a cascade of severe and debilitating complications begins to manifest. These include, but are not limited to, extensive damage to the delicate network of blood vessels throughout the body, leading to microvascular and macrovascular issues, significant problems with vision, often progressing to diabetic retinopathy, compromised kidney function, potentially resulting in chronic kidney disease, and the alarming development of slow healing, often infected, wounds on the feet, a hallmark of diabetic neuropathy and poor circulation. This is not presented as a sensationalized scare tactic. Rather, this grim progression represents the stark clinical reality that medical practices across the United States witness on an alarmingly frequent, indeed weekly, basis. However, amidst this sobering prognosis, there is profoundly good news. While your metabolic indicators, such as blood glucose and insulin levels, are still within a manageable range, this entire detrimental progression can be effectively halted, significantly slowed, and in a great many instances, comprehensively reversed. The remarkably powerful tool required to instigate this reversal is far simpler and more accessible than many might imagine. That indispensable tool is your very own muscles. Within the intricate confines of every muscle cell throughout your body reside countless microscopic structures known as mitochondria. While remembering the precise biological term mitochondria is not strictly essential for grasping the core concept, understanding their critical function is paramount. These mitochondria operate much like minuscule, highly efficient furnaces. Their primary role is to actively seize glucose molecules from your bloodstream, subject them to a process of controlled combustion, and, in doing so, convert that chemical energy into usable kinetic energy for movement and the generation of heat to maintain body temperature. While you are in a state of complete repose, sitting absolutely still, these cellular furnaces are merely idling, running on a very low pilot light. They demand an almost negligible amount of fuel. However, the precise instant a muscle begins to contract, even minimally, those cellular furnaces dramatically flare up, they instantaneously commence burning glucose at a significantly accelerated rate, responding to the immediate energetic demands of the active muscle tissue. Herein lies a truly fascinating and metabolically advantageous distinction. Under normal physiological circumstances, glucose requires insulin to act as a crucial key to unlock the cellular door, granting it entry into the cell. Without insulin, glucose remains locked out, unable to enter and be utilized. However, a working, contracting muscle possesses a unique physiological advantage. It has a back door. This specialized entry point allows glucose to enter the muscle cell directly, without the need for insulin's key. This represents an entirely distinct and independent biological mechanism, one that is instantly activated the moment a muscle begins to contract. Glucose flows unimpeded and directly from the bloodstream into the eager muscle cell. Crucially, your pancreas is not even required to become involved in this process. Consequently, your blood sugar levels drop efficiently, your insulin levels remain placid and stable, and the entire metabolic roller coaster, with its associated spikes and crashes, is prevented from ever gaining momentum. This remarkable insulin-independent glucose uptake mechanism is precisely why the approximately 90-minute period immediately following a meal constitutes the most metabolically valuable window of your entire day. This is the precise interval when blood glucose concentrations are naturally ascending, and it is the opportune moment when your muscles can directly capture and metabolize that glucose before it has the opportunity to be shunted toward less desirable storage in your fat cells, and critically, before your pancreas is compelled to initiate yet another large-scale insulin release. So, the pertinent question arises: which specific muscle excels at this vital task with unparalleled efficiency? This is where the story of the hidden muscle in your calf resurfaces, assuming a central role in our understanding. However, before delving deeper into its unique attributes, a crucial, overarching principle must be emphasized. While muscle activity undeniably and scientifically controls blood sugar, a fact that is thoroughly established and settled within scientific literature, its efficacy is entirely contingent upon one paramount factor: consistency. A solitary walk undertaken after a single meal will certainly provide a beneficial impact for that specific meal. However, it is the deliberate cultivation of a daily habit of consistent movement immediately following meals that gradually yet profoundly rewires the entirety of your body's glucose handling system. Over time, your cells become demonstrably more sensitive to insulin, responding more readily to its signal. Simultaneously, your muscles develop a heightened metabolic appetite for sugar, becoming more hungry for glucose. The net effect is a comprehensive and beneficial shift in your entire metabolic landscape. The operative word here, the magic word, is not intensity, but rather unwavering consistency. Let us now focus our attention on the specific muscle of interest. On the posterior aspect of your lower leg, just beneath the knee, two primary muscles are strategically stacked one upon the other. The more superficial and visually prominent muscle, which forms the recognizable bulge of your calf, is known as the gastrocnemius. This is the muscle that visibly flexes and engages when you perform actions such as standing on your toes. However, positioned beneath the gastrocnemius, deeper within the anatomy of the leg, lies the second, less celebrated, yet metabolically potent muscle, the soleus. A vast majority of people remain entirely unaware of its presence. It does not manifest visibly in the mirror, and its independent contraction is often difficult to consciously perceive. And yet, when evaluated pound for pound in terms of its extraordinary capacity to efficiently extract glucose from the bloodstream, no other muscle in the human body can rival its performance. A few years prior, a team of dedicated researchers at the University of Houston orchestrated an experiment that sent ripples of excitement and intrigue throughout the scientific community. Their meticulously designed study, which provided compelling evidence for the soleus's unique metabolic capabilities, was subsequently published in the esteemed peer-reviewed journal iScience in the year 2022. The methodology was elegantly simple. Participants were instructed to sit in a chair and perform one very straightforward movement after consuming a meal. This movement involved repeatedly lifting and lowering their heels while ensuring their toes remained firmly pressed against the floor. The beauty of this intervention lay in its seamless integration into everyday life. An individual could be actively engaged in working at a computer, passively watching television, or conversing on the phone. None of their customary daily activities had to be altered or disrupted. The sole part of the body in motion was the back of the foot, executing this gentle, rhythmic action. The resultant data astonished even the seasoned researchers themselves. The after-meal glucose spike experienced by the participants dropped by an astounding approximate 52%. Furthermore, the release of insulin, the hormone typically responsible for managing blood sugar, plummeted by close to 60%. This second figure is particularly momentous, signifying that the pancreas was scarcely required to engage its powerful insulin-secreting machinery. The soleus muscle was so extraordinarily efficient at drawing glucose directly out of the bloodstream that a robust insulin response was rendered largely superfluous. This simple yet profound movement can be attempted by anyone, even while engaged in an activity like watching this very video. Simply position both feet flat upon the floor, ensuring your toes remain gently pressed down. Then slowly and deliberately lift your heels upwards, allowing them to descend back to the floor with equal control. Repeat this rhythmic motion, up then down, at a pace that feels comfortable and unhurried, devoid of any forced exertion. This exercise can be discreetly performed at your office desk while relaxing on the couch, or even in the bustling environment of a coffee shop without drawing any noticeable attention from those around you. Engaging in this simple heel raise movement for a duration of 10 to 15 minutes after a meal is sufficient to elicit a genuinely measurable and beneficial difference in your blood sugar regulation. While the soleus muscle stands out as the single most efficient tool for post-meal glucose management, it is by no means the exclusive option. The general principle holds: the greater the number of muscles you activate and engage after a meal, encompassing your legs, back, core, and arms, the more effectively and rapidly glucose is siphoned from your bloodstream. Fortunately, there are several other practical and easily implementable options, all of which can be seamlessly integrated into a normal day without necessitating any specialized planning or major lifestyle adjustments. The first and arguably most classic recommendation is a post-meal walk. In a notable study designed to investigate the